There was a time when no one outside a small town in England knew the name Olivia Cooke, when she was simply a young girl with imagination bigger than her surroundings, carrying quiet ambition in her chest like a secret she wasn't ready to share with the world, and yet inside her burned something powerful, something relentless, something that would not allow her to settle for ordinary. Because long before flashing cameras and red carpets, before international fame and complex roles that critics praised, Olivia Cooke understood one thing that many people spend their entire lives trying to learn: that greatness is built in silence, shaped in rejection, and strengthened in the moments when nobody is clapping for you. And that is exactly where her story begins, not in Hollywood lights, but in the quiet corners of Oldham, Greater Manchester, where she was born and raised, where dreams seemed distant and success stories felt like things that happened to other people. Not girls who walked the same streets every day and attended local schools, but Olivia was never other people. She was different, not louder, not arrogant, not desperate for attention, but observant, deeply thoughtful, absorbing emotions, studying people, watching how expressions changed when they thought no one was looking, and that natural sensitivity would later become her greatest weapon on screen. Because acting for her was never about pretending, it was about feeling, and feeling deeply is something she has always done without apology, even when life tested her. Even when doubts tried to whisper that maybe she wasn't enough, maybe she wasn't glamorous enough, maybe she didn't fit the traditional mold of a Hollywood star. But that is exactly what makes her rise so powerful. She never tried to become someone else to succeed. She became more of herself. And that authenticity is rare in an industry that often rewards imitation over individuality. And when she began pursuing acting seriously, taking local drama classes, stepping onto small stages, auditioning for roles where she was just another hopeful face in a crowded waiting room, she didn't know which yes would change her life. She only knew she had to keep showing up, because success rarely announces itself in advance, it tests your consistency first. And Olivia showed up again and again, through auditions that ended in silence, through near misses that could have broken her confidence, through moments where walking away might have felt easier. But she stayed, and that persistence paid off when she landed early roles that began to put her on the radar. And soon audiences started noticing something different about her, something magnetic, something subtle but unforgettable. And when she starred in the quiet ones, she demonstrated a presence far beyond her years, not overacting, not screaming for attention, but commanding it with controlled intensity, and from there her career began expanding with performances that revealed emotional layers many actors struggled to access. And then came Bates Motel, a role that introduced her to a wider audience and proved she could carry complex psychological depth on screen, standing alongside seasoned actors and holding her ground with remarkable maturity, portraying vulnerability without weakness, darkness without losing humanity. And audiences felt that honesty because it wasn't manufactured, it was lived through her craft. And as opportunities grew, she did not chase fame recklessly, she chose roles carefully, stepping into independent films that demanded emotional risk rather than commercial safety. Because she understood something critical: longevity is built on substance, not hype. And that philosophy led her to projects that allowed her to explore grief, trauma, resilience, love, and survival in ways that resonated deeply. And when she appeared in Me and Earl and The Dying Girl, she delivered a performance that shattered expectations, portraying a character facing mortality with grace, humor, and heartbreaking realism. And viewers across the world connected with that portrayal, not because it was dramatic, but because it was human, painfully human. And that is Olivia Cooke's greatest strength: humanity. She does not act above the audience. She meets them where they are. She allows flaws to breathe on screen. She embraces imperfection instead of hiding it. And that courage to appear real in a world obsessed with filters is what elevates her career beyond trends. And as years passed, she continued evolving, refusing to be boxed into one genre, moving between horror, drama, thriller, historical epics, and intimate character studies. Proving versatility is not about doing everything loudly, but about doing everything truthfully. And when she stepped into the global spotlight through House of the Dragon, Portraying Alison Hightower, she reached a new level of recognition, entering a universe connected to Game of Thrones, a franchise with enormous expectations and intense fan scrutiny, and yet she did not crumble under that pressure. She leaned into complexity, portraying a character torn between loyalty, ambition, motherhood, fear, and power, showing audiences that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it calculates, sometimes it survives quietly in hostile environments. And her portrayal sparked conversations worldwide because it was layered, not simplistic. She allowed viewers to see conflict rather than villainy, vulnerability rather than cruelty, and that nuance is rare, especially in epic fantasy where characters can easily become symbols instead of people. But Olivia grounded Alison in emotional reality, and that performance cemented her status as not just a rising actress, but a defining presence of her generation. And yet, through all of this growth, fame, and acclaim, she has remained remarkably grounded, often speaking openly about mental health, about anxiety, about the pressures of public life, about the insecurity that can linger even after success arrives. And that honesty matters because it reminds aspiring dreamers that even those who make it still wrestle with doubt, still navigate fear, still question themselves, and what separates those who rise from those who stop is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway. And Olivia Cooke embodies that decision repeatedly, choosing courage over comfort, depth over popularity, authenticity over image. And that is why her journey is not just a celebrity story. It is a blueprint for resilience, because she teaches through example that you do not need to be the loudest voice in the room to be heard. You do not need to chase every spotlight to shine. You do not need to sacrifice your identity to achieve success. You only need dedication, patience, and the willingness to keep refining your craft when nobody is watching. And for anyone watching her career unfold, especially young dreamers from small towns who feel invisible or underestimated, her story whispers something powerful. Your starting point does not define your destination. Your background does not limit your ceiling, and your quiet nature is not a weakness, but a hidden strength waiting to be unleashed. And that is the deeper inspiration within Olivia Cooke's rise, not just the awards, not just the premieres, not just the global recognition, but the disciplined evolution of a woman who trusted her talent, honored her sensitivity, embraced complexity, and proved that sometimes the most unstoppable forces are the ones that move with quiet certainty rather than noise. And as her career continues to expand, as new roles emerge, as her artistry deepens, one thing remains clear: Olivia Cooke is not simply acting in stories. She is building one of her own, a story of persistence, emotional courage, and fearless authenticity that will inspire audiences for years to come, reminding us all that success is not about becoming someone different. It is about becoming fully yourself and daring the world to accept it. Success changes many people, but what makes Olivia Cooke's journey extraordinary is not just that she reached global recognition, it's how she handled it when it arrived. Because fame is loud, overwhelming, and often unforgiving, especially for someone who never chased attention for validation. And yet, when the world began watching her more closely after the explosive success of House of the Dragon, she did not transform into a manufactured version of herself to satisfy expectations. She did something far more powerful. She remained honest, grounded, and emotionally transparent in an industry that frequently rewards illusion over authenticity. And that choice alone separates performers from true artists, because the higher you rise, the greater the pressure to protect your image. But Olivia has repeatedly shown that she values truth over perfection, and that truth is visible in every character she inhabits, every interview she gives, every creative risk she takes. And it's important to understand that none of this was accidental, because long before international acclaim, she had already built the mental resilience required to withstand public scrutiny, having navigated early career struggles, personal insecurities, and the constant uncertainty that defines the acting profession, where talent alone is never enough and timing, luck, and persistence all collide unpredictably. And yet she stayed focused not on comparison but on craft, refining her emotional range, deepening her understanding of character psychology, studying silence as much as dialogue, because sometimes the most powerful acting happens in what isn't said, and Olivia mastered that restraint, that quiet intensity that pulls viewers in without demanding their attention, and this skill became increasingly evident as she expanded into roles that demanded psychological complexity and moral ambiguity.